understood. With just 34 days to the general election, IEBC now faces a fresh hurdle after the High Court declared the regulation requiring presidential candidates to provide copies of their supporters' ID cards unconstitutional. Third Way Party leader Ekuru Aukot had moved to court to protest what he termed as a sham process of nominating presidential candidates, and wants the process repeated. NTV's Sydney Chazima has more in the ruling and its implications for election preparedness.
The case that enjoined close to 18 petitioners had sought to find clarity on the applicability of the General Elections Regulation 2012, which required all persons seeking to vie in various electoral positions to supply copies of national identity cards of their supporters to the IEBC in seeking registration. In his ruling today, High Court Judge Anthony Charo Mrima termed the regulation unconstitutional and thus null and void. The court found that the requirement was also inconsistent with the Data Protection Act.
Well, the impact of this ruling is very simple. That the nomination of the so-called the 4 presidential candidates, Raila Odinga, William Ruto, Wajakoya, and Maure, is an illegality. So it's an illegality. That's what the judge has actually said, that the fact that they were nominated based on this regulation, that renders the entire nomination shambolic. It's a nullity. So we don't have nominated presidential candidates as we speak.
Third Way Alliance Party leader Dr. Ekuru Aukot was among those who moved to court over what he termed as a sham and discriminative process of clearing the presidential candidates. He had been locked out of the presidential contest for failing to provide copies of his supporters' ID cards.
We went to Chebukati on the 5th of June and we wrote to him an objection where we advised him that, one, it is not practical to actually photocopy IDs of Kenyans because it goes against the Data Protection Act, and the judge actually agreed with us on that point, that it was against the Data Protection Act. Number two, the judge also said it is not a constitutional requirement under Article 137 of the Constitution of Kenya.
The ruling now complicates IEBC's election preparedness as the commission was on course to print the ballot papers. Third Way Alliance has called for the printing of ballot papers to be shelved until a nomination that is above board is conducted.
Chebukati will have to start this process afresh. Number two, or then to invite all presidential candidates who met the provisions of Article 137 and to allow them to be in the ballot and for the election to take place. Otherwise, it's a nullity ab initio.
In a press statement seen by NTV, the Third Way Alliance hit out at IEBC over what it terms as an attempt to amend the constitution through the back door and called for Chebukati's resignation.
Chebukati is not fit to hold office. He must resign immediately because first and foremost, as you can see, he has failed to just apply the Constitution. Yet elections are supposed to be managed within the framework of the Constitution and the law. He has even failed to apply just Elections Act alone. So this is a man who is not fit to actually manage our election. He must resign, in my view.
With just 34 days to the general election, the IEBC now faces a legal hurdle that could potentially scuttle its preparations as it races against time to prepare for yet another high-stakes election contest. Sydney Chazima, NTV.